So I guess let's start off talking about the level 50 devices since that's on, well, at least at the community level, that's on everybody's mind. I'm not sure consumers are yet really aware of what's going on with that. Um, and as we kind of all, I think at some level we all understand that the really high level idea here is to provide more comfortable devices so that we can get more boaters wearing the devices more of the time. I mean, it's not a complicated concept, right? It's about getting more people in devices and we're continuing to wear them so that we improve the wear rates. And I think the example that I heard quite a long time ago was back to the 70s when we introduced Type 3s. And there was this big uptick in the wear rate because suddenly you weren't wearing an orange horseshoe collar thing that nobody wanted to wear. You were actually able to wear something more comfortable. So this is the idea is to do that. Now, the difference is here we've effectively introduced a consumer contract with this level 50 device. We're saying to that boater, okay, we will provide you with the opportunity to wear a more comfortable device. You need to tell us that you're a reasonably adequate swimmer and it's a self-certification. It's not, the officer of the day doesn't need to go, take somebody's jacket off, push them into the water and say, okay, give me 50 yards and let me see that you can swim. That's not the point. You're self-certifying that you're a swimmer and you're wearing the device. So boom, right there, we're ahead of the game. We've got somebody wearing the device, assuming that they're following it. And obviously, if they have a level 50 on the boat that they're not wearing, uh, then that's a problem. And I presume that's a ticket, but that's a different thing. Um, so at the very high level, those are those two things. You've got to pay attention to the activity icons because not all devices are appropriate for all activities. And I think one of the most confusing pieces about the level 50s, or certainly the question I've been getting from all kinds of folks, is, oh, well, I have a Gill level 50, or I have a Zyke level 50 jacket right now, or I have a comp vest that says it meets an ISO level 50. That's so now that's good. That's acceptable. It's like, no, if it doesn't say U.S. Coast Guard or or Transport Canada approved, depending on which country you're in, it's not appropriate. It's not certified to meet carriage requirements. And I think that's actually going to be the biggest headache for the RBS community because there's a lot of stuff that's out there that meets the ISO level 50 requirements that I think a lot of boaters will assume is okay to be wearing, and it isn't. So that, for me, that may be the biggest communication piece with well, two things with level 50. You have to wear it, and if it's ISO approved, that doesn't make it okay. It's got to be USCG and Transport Canada approved. So that's not, and as I understand it, we're not going to see that stuff in the market probably till 27 because Transport Canada just accepted those in February of this year. So even though USCG accepted them back in 24, Transport didn't allow for that until this year. And so nobody's got there's no certification ready to go. So all of us are scrambling to come up with product and get it into the market. And unfortunately, that's not a fast process. This is a space where we have a lot of work to do as an industry and as stakeholders to clean up our communications about what's out there. If you look at the placard and you look at the iconography that we developed years ago for level 50, level 70, level 100, level 150, we have a certain amount of sea state in there and time to rescue, the helping hand icon. And what that really is telling you is that the level 50 is appropriate for a place where you're close to shore and you're able to be rescued. So what Canada did is taking that icon and taking that intention as which was built into that whole progression of levels, and they actually wrote it into their policy letter saying, yeah, you need to be close to shore and near to hand. Now, at an enforcement level, how do they figure that out? I mean, again, for the audience that we're speaking to in this conference, that's a nightmare. I mean, I'm imagining that the Ontario Provincial Police are going to look at that and say, that person's wearing something. I don't need to bug them. And, and if they're 2 miles from shore, or if they're a mile from shore, or if they're 200 yards from shore, it's really more about, okay, they're in a boat, they're wearing a device. I'm I'm moving on to the next problem. I'm not fussing with them. So I see that as a challenging piece of written legislation that's like that just to me it just begs an enforcement question immediately. But yeah, it does describe the intent of the device and of the standard. So it's really from that perspective, it's actually incorporated into the U.S. side too. But there's nobody nobody called it out in the CFR when that was rolled up and written. So it's that's the challenge. And I do think again, at the end of the day, this really comes down to wear rate and getting people to wear the jackets more often. Because I mean that's where we're seeing the gap, right? Mustang is heavily invested both in the United States and in Canada. So we have a real interest in trying to harmonize as many of our products as we can, and we've spent a lot of time and effort doing that. Having having said that, the costs to doing that are not small. So there is a return on investment decision, and there are other companies that have legacy US approvals and legacy Canadian approvals, and they'll continue to maintain those and run those for a long time, even though it costs them more because it's not a single product. It's two different labels, so it has to be two different SKUs, so to speak, two different parts. But you know, they're they're not incurring new costs to harmonize those. So I think the decision tree for every company is a little bit different. Um, for us, there's no question that we think the harmonized is the better way to go. And again, I hope that we can kind of continue as a the broader public, the broader stakeholders can continue to clarify what this means to customers. Um, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is that, I think this really where Coast Guard was heading with this. And I remember Brandy Baldwin, who's no longer with the Office of Engineering, but she was there years ago, and she would occasionally get very frustrated with those of us who were asking questions. Well, is this okay? And it's like she basically said, if it says U.S. Coast Guard approved, it's approved. And fundamentally, with the new regs and the new CFRs that have kicked in for recreational boaters, that's basically it. So if it's a U.S. Coast Guard and or Transport Canada approved device, it's approved for carriage, assuming it's appropriate for the activity. And actually, I'm not even sure that's a great way to say it. It might be better to say it's not wrong for the activity. So, it's all of those icons are really strike throughs, right? So it's really a negative. It's so an inflatable is not appropriate for a personal watercraft. And a lot of people ask about that too, because an inflatable is okay on a high-speed bass boat. And in fact, it's a really good device for a high-speed bass boat because it's easy to cast. You can move, you can jump. But the assumption is on a bass boat, you're going in once. If you get ejected and you go into the water, you're that's probably the end of a not great day of fishing for you. Or whereas if you're on a personal watercraft, you may go in multiple times. Well, if you're wearing an inflatable and it inflates, what are you doing? Are you climbing back onto your boat and then rearming it? No, you're wearing it inflated. And if you fall off at speed with an inflatable behind your neck, what are you going to do? You're going to break your neck. I mean, it's not appropriate, not the appropriate device. Whitewater is somewhat similar in the sense that, whitewater paddlers go in and out of the water all the time. It's not appropriate for them to be wearing an inflatable that automatically inflates. And then where are they? That makes no sense. So those are some of the activity restrictions that really make sense. And then I guess the other big one would be water sports. And that's really about belting and about making sure the device isn't going to come off your body if you fall into the water at speed. And then sizing. So it's got to be the right size. It's got to fit you and your passengers and be right for everybody on board. But again, all of that is consistent between the old standards and the new. I mean, really, that's true. And if it says you must wear it, well, guess what? You need to be wearing it. Virtually all of the inflatables that we do, I won't speak for other people, but yoke style inflatable, it'll say something like type 2 inflatable, type 5 for commercial use must be worn. But that must be worn clause is only when it's being used on a commercial vessel under 40 feet without passengers for hire. And it says all of that on the label. But if you just are scanning the label quickly, you're thinking, I have to wear this. Well, no, you don't. Not if you're a recreational boater and you're not commercially active. You don't have to wear it. So yeah, it's you really do have to read the label and be careful about it. But for the most part, the labels are pretty clear. Down in the approval section of the label, it will say must be worn. And the other space that gets confusing, and this is true with the harmonized devices, especially in Canada, there are actually no wear requirements for life jackets. There's no must be worn except for inflatables. So if you have an inflatable in Canada, you have to wear it. So again, there's that language appears on the label. So if somebody in the States is scanning quickly and they're just looking, oh, must be worn in Canada, not in the US. So yeah, you really need to pay attention to the label and read it carefully.